Let's start this video with the examination of the word Sabbath. So I will show you how you can start with a mistake and end up with a good result. In the word Sabbath you have the word Ba. So as Shabbat is the day of God, it will probably be Ra-bat, Ra day. How would they have called the other days of the week? Well, of 2 days I'm certain you would have Sun Day and Moon Day. That of course reminded me of the RGB system where Sun and Moon are both reflections of Earth. So let's take the counter-rotating pyramid system with the Ka and the Ra and the Ba. So you have the Sol, then you have the Man for the Moon, and in the center you would have Earth. So how would we call the Earth? Well, that's like kicking in an open door. That is the O, of course. So in an electrical system that would give you the positive, the minus and the neutral. Let's copy the Solomon system and give it a right turn. That would give you 7 days of the week. Sol-ka, O-ka, Mon-ka. Then you would go to the underworld, Mon-ba, O-ba and Sol-ba. And the 7th day would be the day of Ra. So the 6th day of the week would be the Sol-ba or the Sha-ba. So you could pronounce the word Solomon as Shauman, Shauman, Shaman. So the shaman would not be the priest of some native tribe, but he would be the priest who knows the secrets of the Solomon star. Let's put the Solomon star on the Hereford map. So then you see the center of the star is Jerusalem. So I think the center of the star was called Ur Solomon. Ur stands for city. If you reverse Ur, you have Ru, probably Ra. Let's take a look at an old picture of Jerusalem, and there you see the 3 walls. That would be the 3 circles of Atlantis. In a previous video I showed that the counter-rotating pyramids is the energetic system of crater Atlantis. So when I looked again at our crater with the Star of Solomon, I noticed there is already 1 ring in our crater. So at that point it flashed through my head. They are recreating Atlantis in our crater. Let's take a look at the bottom and top of the star. So at the bottom you have the pillars of Hercules, and on the top you have Paradise. So Paradise is the circle, Jerusalem is the octagon, and the pillars of Hercules are 2 poles. The pillars of Hercules, of course, we know of the Freemasons, Joachim and Boaz. So Joachim is the red pillar, Ja-ka, you hear the Ka? The Ka is the sun, Isis the upward pyramid. Boaz is the blue pillar, the Ba, the moon, Osiris, the down pointing black triangle. Let's put the Solomon star between 2 pillars, and then you see the 1x, x1, the 911, one of their favorite themes. And yes, they already knew that in the Middle Ages. You have the twin pillars And in the center of the Solomon star you have the Eye of Ra. Take the black triangle and the white triangle, and with that you can make the checkerboard motif. Now let's presume you want to create an electrical counter-rotating system on top of our crater. How would you do that? With the first pillar you could create the Ba pyramid. But the second pillar you would have to beam to Jerusalem and from there to Paradise. Then you would have the up pointing pyramid, the Ka. And how would you energize this system? Well, let me show you the Kelvin water dropper. So by using streaming water you can create a high voltage current. Here you see how the system is built. Let's take a look at the triangular wave generator. There you can see it has different components like resistors, for instance. So how could you transfer this energy to the other side of the crater? Well, that might explain all these strange buildings built with perfect precision and with an enormous labor, with a technology we still don't understand. It seems like they all are part of a gigantic machine. So they are recreating Atlantis, but that would mean they need a second star. Let's take a look what points that would give us. So at the bottom you have the twin pillars. Moving upwards you have Rome. In the center you have Ur, Solomon, Jerusalem. Then you have Babel. And on the top you have Paradise. Let's take a closer look. And on the top you have Babel. Everybody knows the story of the Tower of Babel. So what happened at Babel? I think when they activated the force field, it did something with our brain. Maybe our telepathic abilities were disturbed at that point. So when you follow this circle with the star, strange things are happening in the Bible. So the evil city of Sodom and Gomorrah is punished by God and is burning. When someone looks behind at the fire, he changes into a pillar of salt. Then you have the opening of the Red Sea. So water is starting to behave strangely and the color is changing into red. There you have the gathering place of the Israelites, the beginning of the voyage of 40 years. Finally they arrive at Jericho, where the city is demolished in a very strange way with trumpets. Another punishment of God. Let's move south to the lighthouse of Alexandria. And Alexandria, situated at the Nile Delta. The Nile transformed by Moses into blood, and the library of Alexandria burned to the ground. Moving further south through the labyrinth, we arrive at Rome, the burning down of Rome. Well, you might say that's another timeline. Well, you might be right, but what certainty do we have that all the historical events we have learned at school are true? So I'm not sure. Moving up through Venice, Macedonia, Constantinople, Antiochia, and back to the Tower of Babel. So we see, as they are installing the second star, strange things are happening. But suddenly this happens. Well, it almost looks like our crater is getting in a state of shock. Half of the crater is freezing down. Well, you might ask yourself, is that good news or bad news? Well, I'm not sure. Fact is that an organic body will always react with water. When a strange entity has entered the body will always try to flood it. So flooding is not an action of God, but an action of the body. That made me think that Atlantis might have been the previous victim of this entity. So let's take a look again at the god of the Baba El. The water moving entity changing water into wine or blood or petroleum, whatever. The Jehovah Ra Phoenix entity. Time to take a look at the creation myth. So the Solomon star is installed and activated. First there was the light. This radiation creates a firmament. The light reflects in the firmament and creates the sun. The sun shines on the earth and creates a reflection, the moon and the stars. This activation of the Solomon star is dividing the water from the land. So the story that the parasitic god created man, animals and plants is a fraud. These were created by a consciousness higher than the parasite. So the parasites have a problem now. They couldn't install the second ring. So they have to start all over again. And that is what they do, of course. Here starts the story of the Vikings, of which I made a video in the Empire of the False Christ. First thing they do is search for a new Ur Solomon, a center of a new Solomon star. There they built the second temple of Jerusalem, a temple in the form of an octagon. But now, of course, they need the twin pillars to activate their star. So by my knowledge there are two pillars of Hercules. You have the pillars of Hercules in Spain, and you have, of course, the Twin Towers in New York, or at least you had. So I did a test with a Solomon star. I took Jerusalem as the center and Gibraltar as the beginning of the circle. Well, that had a surprising result. Madrid, Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Stockholm, Helsinki. Let's turn that around. Stockholm, Copenhagen, all the capital cities seem to be situated in this circle. And back to Gibraltar. So let's take a look at the emblem of the European Union. They would need 12 points to activate the star. And what is the opposite side of Gibraltar? It's probably Mumbai, Bombay, Baba. When I'm looking for a shape that could fulfill the role of a pillar, I just can't find one, except maybe the rock itself or the shape of the island. So now I can put a star on the map of Europe, and then I could put a second one on top of it and see where it ends. As expected, it ends in the water. Let's flip the Americas. When I shrink it a bit, with some goodwill, you could end up in New York. Or should we say New Ark? Maybe you have to put a third one upon it. Let's take a look at New York. That of course would be the perfect place to put a twin pillar. You can see one on one side of the water, and on the other side there's some other buildings that could play the role of twin pillars, like those three strange buildings here. Reminds me a bit of a lingam. For the people who know that, that's a sort of sacrificial stone in the Cambodian temples with a water supply. When you look at the top, these buildings are very strange. There's another building there that proves that the parasite is here. Take a look at this one here. It's like some hairy monster. And we have another proof that our good friends of the Solomon Star are here. Hi guys. Probably one of the most expensive places of New York. Now the question would be, why did they pull down the Twin Towers? Well, I think New York is a very important magnetic center. As Earth is constantly moving off position and the magnetic field is changing, they have to pull down buildings that used to work but don't work anymore. So they have to constantly rebuild New York. That is also the reason why all these ancient temples were abandoned. They didn't have a function anymore, as our crater had changed its vibration. Well, I have the impression that the game is lost. Putting another star on this planet will take him thousands of years. Of course, they are very patient, I know, but I think they came up with a B plan. They have selected a new crater, Mars, which they will terraform for their plans for the recreation of Atlantis. But time is getting short. The problem is they still need us to terraform Mars. But because the descendants of the Atlanteans aren't that clever anymore, they are losing grip on the Goyim. So this coronavirus might be the final battle. I think it's a 5G controlled virus. Well, it's probably not even a virus. The symptoms of this radiation attack are the same as a flu. So my message would be, let's keep opening doors. One day soon we will get to the final door.